Thank you, everyone, for being here today. And my name is Bonnie Glick. I'm a senior advisor here at CSIS, and it's an honor to participate in this panel on rebuilding the digital infrastructure of Ukraine. We'll go a little bit deeper than just infrastructure. I think that this conversation for governments, for the private sector, and for civil society are very important conversations to be had. So we have an incredible panel here today. I'll start with Ambassador Christian Prick from Estonia. It's wonderful to see you, Mr. Ambassador. We have Maxim Shkilov, advisor to the Deputy Prime Minister and to the Minister of Digital Transformation of Ukraine. We have Vera Savchenko, who's representing the private sector of Ukraine in her role as CEO of BDO and has great information to share with all of us. And finally, Andrea Misori, from the president of Ericsson Italy and head of the customer support unit for the Southeastern Mediterranean and for Eurasia. I wanted us to open up this morning with a few slides that Maxim has prepared for us, and I think we'll be able to go through, that show for the audience where Ukraine is today in terms of internet connectivity, in terms of access and accessibility for Ukrainian citizens. So Maxim, maybe I'll turn to you first to give us an overview of Ukraine today.
Thank you, Bonnie. What I would tell you that before the February 2022, we built a digital state means that should work. Yes. That we build three components: digital infrastructure, digital services, and digital literacy. Because without having any part of that, people wouldn't be able to use the advantages of digital. So the goal of Ministry of Digital Transformation, 100% of all services available online. And till 2022, it was 90% of all services available online through DIA portal or DIA application. And also, a lot of people got the digital literacy. But this is not a point of today's discussion. Today, we will speak about the digital infrastructure, means accessibility, means internet connection, broadband and everything, and we've got significant losses. Because before the February, it was coverage around 90% of all services, accessibility, I mean internet, broadband in a country. We were most advantaged country in Europe in this point. But 25% now damaged or destroyed or stolen. And this is more than 2 billion to be recovered, and this is the great opportunity for private and business to invest in Ukraine. And this is something I want to raise here today, that we've got 25% of losses. We've got companies who is ready for investments because they now struggling without having money to cover all these losses. And yes, we are working hard with that. So we've got Starlinks, more than 40,000 Starlinks all everywhere. And even in the front line, our warriors can call home. And this is something we're covering now. What we need, I would say, two things. The one is to recover the territories who are free from invasion. And we are doing this every day, step by step, moving enemy from Ukraine. But we need support with that. And this is about investments. And the second one, this is we need to get rid of Russia influence, because we need to build direct fiber lines with other countries and make our infrastructure interoperable with Europe, with the world. And this is second direction to be invested.
Maxim, thank you. Thank you very much. The picture that you have painted for us of the status of Ukraine today is really important for people to understand. Ukrainian citizens were used to a high level of service accessibility in broadband connectivity before Russia's invasion. And what Ukraine must do now is rebuild not just to that service level that was available pre-invasion, but to an even better level. And one of the things that Maxim just said is Ukraine needs to be building systems that are interoperable with Europe. This is with a vision toward Ukraine's full integration into the European Union, which it cannot do if it's reliant on any legacy systems from Russia or legacy technologies from Russia. It has to be fully integrated and interoperable with Europe. There's no country that has done this better than Estonia. And very often people will say, yes, but Estonia is tiny. Yes, but Estonia is remarkable in terms of its ability to provide services to its citizens, as well as its ability to counter Russian cyber attacks, denial of service attacks, Russian malign influences in the internet. Mr. Ambassador, you have been one of the strongest champions in Washington, D.C. for Ukraine's unconditional victory and for the full integration of Ukraine into Europe, as well as eventually into NATO. I would love to hear from you about how Ukraine can build an ICT structure that is future-proof. How can Ukraine, on a very large scale, replicate Estonia's tremendous success?
Yeah. Thank you very much, Bonnie, for these questions that are incredibly relevant right now, and certainly as we move to the future. And thank you personally and CSIS for having this panel and organizing this very timely conference. This is an incredible week. Just yesterday, I had the opportunity to attend a very inspiring event with President Zelensky there, and I think whereas the let's say the mainstream message that I've been able to get from the American and international media about the president's visit has been somewhat pessimistic. I'm pretty sure, based on what I know, based on what I see, that this visit was much more positively consequential than it may have looked in the very first moment. Now, talking about the issue of how to future-proof the ICT, let's say, infrastructure. I would actually try to zoom out from just from the physical infrastructure, because firstly, I'm a diplomat, so I can freely use different terms without having any understanding what they mean, right? And secondly, at least based on our Estonian experience, we think that in order to have the ICT infrastructure that actually support the services that people do deserve and need and ask for, not only today but also tomorrow, we should not only think about the physical part, even as important as it is. So in order to really have the, let's say, future-proof ICT domain, certainly the physical part is there, and in the case of Ukraine, I think the Estonian experience where we were eager to partner with international telecom companies, eager to actually take risks that were often considered intolerable even in some other countries, because some of the newer technologies were not tested yet. And in Estonian case, primarily the Scandinavian telecom companies that are close to us, market-wise, culture-wise, they were eager to use Estonia as a test polygon, for the lack of better words, and we were eager to try out, because after all we had very little to lose. And I think this attitude is something that would be also very fitting for and in Ukraine. And having said that, I also have to say that Ukraine has been incredible in doing miracles in IT before the war, but certainly also during the war. The second element, aside from the physical infrastructure, is certainly the choice of, let's say, software and also the architecture that is used in software, so that the services that can be developed on this IT infrastructure, that these are not just fun things to play with, but for IT professionals, but are actually something that the citizens can benefit from, and that the citizens can trust. This is incredibly important. The more advanced our societies are, the more important the trust factor is. After all, if the trust is there, we can build new services. We can actually use novel solutions. If the trust is not there, then the citizens really hesitate, and the public investments or private investments in those services actually go up in smoke because they won't be used. And thirdly, maybe for IT professionals, this is not part of the infrastructure, but I would still mention it. It's the whole regulation and legal side that actually determines how, when, and to what purpose we use this infrastructure, and we use the services. What kind of even physical bits of the infrastructure can be used. And this is also very much about creating trust and transparency to the system. This is something that covers the whole spectrum, from individuals that they feel that their data, their private secrets are handled properly. But since you mentioned NATO, for example, we certainly, while building up the future digital infrastructure of Ukraine, I think we all should think of Ukraine as a future member of NATO, and we should make sure that Ukraine's national security secrets, as well as Estonia's and American national security secrets, are safe, that they are not compromised by using untrusted vendors and things like that. There are two things more that I would like to say. Firstly, I would so very much want to subscribe to the notion that, particularly in the context of this conference, but also let's say in more general sense, we should not only talk about Ukraine in terms of missile attacks, in terms of tragedies occurring on a daily basis, not think of Ukraine as a country with its very tragic present, but we should more talk about the opportunity that is there, and the greatness of this country, the greatness of this nation. Also yesterday in this very same conference it was mentioned that Ukraine has this very strong industrial legacy, industrial experience, Ukraine and Ukrainians. But this is not all of it. It's also brains, it's also about culture of innovation, it's also about natural resources, and very importantly, it's also about major market. In the European context, Ukraine should be considered a major market. So it can be a fantastic production base, it can be a fantastic innovation hub, and it can be a fantastic market. And just a last point, particularly in this city, particularly in the context of current debates, if not fights on the Hill, it's very important to tell that there is actually a great story about support to Ukraine when it comes to contributions of Europe. Europe has surpassed, according to the Kiel Institute that has followed and tracked the contributions to Ukraine since the outbreak of this stage of the war. According to the Kiel Institute, Europe has passed by a wide margin US when it comes to deliveries and planned contributions to Ukraine, particularly because most European countries have started to look long term. Many countries have already committed to long-term contributions, and the EU Commission is doing the same. So to the US companies, the message should be that please, you as your companies, but also please address your governments not to miss out of the opportunities that are there and will be there in Ukraine. Thank you. I hope I didn't use too much time.
Maxim, you want to give a quick intervention?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for mentioning the integration not only on the software and processes, but with the legislation and standards. Yes, so we're coming through this. Even a few weeks ago, we received the GovStack compliant status for one of our software. So integration means not only physical, but legislation and standards as well. Thank you for mentioning that.
What you've mentioned, Mr. Ambassador, and Maxim, what you have focused in on as well, is how vital it is to be acting now. One, because there's an urgent need, but also two, because the opportunities are enormous. And this is where the private sector of Ukraine, as well as the global private sector, really has an opportunity to get deeply involved in helping to craft what a fully integrated and interoperable Ukraine will look like. Vera, I'm going to turn to you, please, for some thoughts from you, very broadly, I know, representing the entire Ukrainian private sector on this panel, but I think very usefully with an understanding of how Europe is already heavily investing in Ukraine, where maybe, as Ambassador Parik just said, American companies might be missing the boat. And I know you have a document which will be available online that's very, very useful about private sector engagement in Ukraine, but some thoughts from you on the next steps.
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you to organizers to bring such important topic, the role of private sector in Ukraine recovery. I'm working in a private company in Ukraine, but I was invited here because I'm wearing my second hat in Ukraine Recovery Committee in European Business Association. It's one of the largest association of Ukrainian business in Ukraine, along with the American Chamber of Commerce and a few others. So let me tell a little bit more about opportunities in IT and telecom sector. First of all, there are a lot of opportunities already being developed by European countries. Let me explain what I'm talking about. Few countries already appointed special representatives to Ukraine, like US did, but few European countries did it quite some time ago. Poland was active from the first months after full-scale invasion started. Germany is very active. Germany providing not only financing and war risk insurance to German companies, but also to companies from other countries. France appointed special representative. Austria appointed special trade representative. So Denmark is doing tremendous things for Danish companies who wants to sell goods, services to Ukraine. For example, they have grants for critical goods, which reimburse up to 70% of cost of these goods. So European companies leverage every opportunities. Credit agencies are very active, so they already covering some risks for small, medium enterprises, not only for big investments. So what are the opportunities in the sector in Ukraine? Why US companies should think about investing in ICT sector? First of all, yesterday and today and right now, colleagues speaking about people. People are the main driver of Ukrainian economy and of Ukrainian ICT sector. In Ukraine, we have one of the biggest and most reliable recruitment portal for IT sector called Genie. And on Genie now there is around 90,000 people looking for jobs in IT, and most of these people, up to 75%, with 3 or 5 years of experience. So it's really big market of high-skilled labor in Ukraine. A lot of companies are moving their R&D or their IT support to Ukraine, and also because of our tax regime DIA-City, which is very favorable with really low employment and corporate tax, it's really cost-effective. Ukraine can compete with India and with other countries on this. Second, also it was a little bit covered yesterday by colleagues. Ukrainian technologies can be tested very quickly and can be deployed very quickly. A lot of things were told about drones, but not only drones are now being developed in Ukraine. For example, all technologies that need to be or may be used in the so-called smart city concept. Unfortunately, we see every week now some natural disasters all over planet happened. In Ukraine, there are a lot of our technologies which were made to alarm for some missile alerts and maybe later to overcome our military threats. They can be used to alarm, to maybe prevent in some extent and to cope later with natural disasters. So these technologies are also developed very quickly. A lot of investors are interested in patents, in technologies by itself. So also this work is coming. So just a glimpse.
It really is just a very small sliver of a snapshot. One of the things that Ambassador McKee said this morning is that the economic recovery in Ukraine cannot wait for the end of the war. And Andrea, this is where the telecom sector really comes into play. There will be no economic recovery if the telecommunications infrastructure is not rebuilt more robustly, securely, in a trusted manner. Maxime has already told us that 75% of ICT telecommunications is provisional with the godsend of Starlink, but also 25% of it has been completely destroyed or stolen. So when you think about the rebuilding and the robustness that's needed, even, Ukraine 3G, Ukraine 4G, why aren't we talking about Ukraine 5G? Where does it look, what does the landscape look like to you?
Yeah, no, thank you, Bonnie. First of all, thanks for inviting me here. And I'm one of these I represent one of these European players that are working with Ukraine. Our software, our products as Ericsson are in the country since 130 years. So it's a long-standing relation. My team in Kiev, fantastic people. They've been supporting, these kind of managing the network while getting destroyed or stolen during the Russian invasion, while they were continuing working as unique capabilities in the software development for the region, for Eurasia, for Georgia, for Kazakhstan, for Azerbaijan. And they are continuing like that. Ukraine for us is a hub of competence that we bet on and we will continue betting on. Now, you mentioned something very important. Telecommunication infrastructure is like the highway for the cars. We have been talking about a lot of technology innovation in different sectors over these 2 days. It will not materialize if the digital infrastructure will not be available, will not be regulated, will not be trusted. That is what we see happening in other countries in Europe. It's what the ambassador mentioned before about the leapfrog of Estonia. It's about what the US are doing in deploying the 5G. It's not the connectivity. 5G is a platform. It's a platform for business development, which finds in Ukraine a perfect soil. It's not only the agricultural soil, it's really the competence, the culture, the capability. So in order to do that, I would like to shift the paradigm from rebuilding to new building. Because rebuilding will be like for like, We get sites destroyed, we substitute with the same technology, as it's happening today in the rush for making it work. But the question is, can we look at a different setup? And the answer is yes, and we should do it now. Again, time is crucial. The investment that the operators, the mobile operators in Ukraine are doing today can be addressed if the state will start regulating the 5G licenses. So we were almost there before the war to start, but now it's time to decide how to use the spectrum and how to incentivize the introduction of a new technology to help the digitalization of the country. Second is about selecting which framework to apply. Now, European countries are using the so-called 5G toolbox. And the 5G toolbox is not different from what US is doing in selecting and defining how to build a trusted network. Who are the partners I want to work with? What does a trusted network mean? How to secure, security into the network. We have seen these, the importance of this during the last 18 months. Secure telecommunication allow mission-critical network capability, allow the military forces to be connected, allow the blue lights to operate in the city, allow services like push-to-talk to be available for the fire brigade to the rescue patrols, allow the shelters to be connected during the airstrikes. So these kind of things needs a regulation. The 5G toolbox is available. Europe has implemented it, and I mean, I don't see the reason why Ukraine should follow a different path. It's something that can be, interpreted and adapted, but it's there. And I mean, if we look at the network today, a number of these sites, a number of these technologies are not fitting the high-risk vendor strategy of the US or of many European countries. So that's why I'm saying we should look at it right now. A third point, we can think about, as we said before, we have a problem, rebuild the network, but we have opportunities. Creating a 5G network with the support of the public funding, private funding, or a mix of the two that can help the operators to work together into the platform. Create a nationwide mission-critical network over a 5G platform. Why not? These are the things that I believe should be the discussion today. This can attract the investment from the US, because it's one of the most promising technology in the world. You see the rush to move to 5G is happening worldwide. Look what is happening to India. A country that has decided to move at triple the speed of any other player, because they have understood that this technology will unleash a tremendous economical capability. So can Ukraine do the same? Yes. And I mean, there is a crisis ongoing, but let's not waste the crisis in thinking of how to move these decision into something that can be beneficial for a lot of other sectors. That's the idea behind.
Andrea, you raise two components, which I think everyone has touched on. The first is Ukrainian capabilities. They exist in tremendous quantities. Engineers, software developers, hardware, everything that is needed to fit into an equation of infrastructure. The piece that we've all touched on, but that hasn't really been shouted out significantly, is the courage of the Ukrainians who are operating, as you said, Andrea, in your service centers in Kyiv, under fire, and who are going to the front lines, as Maxim is well aware, who are going to the front lines and who are rebuilding, not new building yet, rebuilding the infrastructure so that communications can remain ongoing. This is an extraordinary environment. It's an extraordinary moment in world history that we all have an opportunity to jump on. Before I turn to you, Maxim, for your reactions to what you're hearing here, Andrea, you mentioned to us that the European Commission has now qualified Ukraine for, you know the language better than I do, the procurements, and Vera knows the language better than I do. What does this mean for Ukraine's access to new building technologies?
I mean, I was mentioning one initiative from the European Union that is the connectivity, the name is Connecting Europe Facility, CEF. Is a fund that Europe is putting at, with aim of reinforcing backbones, digital capabilities, different infrastructure with countries that are at the border of the Union. So lately, Ukraine has been, allowed to apply to these funds. So really to present projects to the European Union that will be participated from EU to create common backbones in between Europe and Ukraine. This is one concrete example of something that is happening today and could be a stimulus to do similar thing with other players, both on the public, I'm thinking now, US, of course, or on the private sector, because that's really the idea. This infrastructure will be economically extremely relevant going forward.
So Vera, the countries that are on the border of the EU or in the region of the EU that don't sound like Russia, what are some other areas that as you look at it are able to tap into, we're just going to broaden the scope a little bit, that are able to tap into this European fund that's really designed to secure the EU's borders while having a vision toward future expansion of the EU?
When Ukraine got candidate status, thank you to our government for such quick gain, Ukraine became applicable to a lot of programs in European Union, and a lot of programs are designed to develop R&D in almost all spheres, all public life. For example, very interesting program is Horizon. It's an amazing program with quite big budgets, and for example, now Ukrainian city can apply to be a smart city. There are a few programs about green transition and so on and so on. So it's just good that we can now apply to this program and develop faster.
So the speed is of the essence. Very often government types of programs are slow to move. Maxim, you and I have had a conversation about commitments, obligations, but where's the money? And it's hard for companies to make investments when they are dependent on something. Usually their shareholders are often dependent on having a little bit more than a government pledge, whether it's a European government or the American government pledging money. That said, governments are slow to move. If you had a magic wand, Maxim, what would be the first thing, and maybe also the second thing, that you focused on for the new building of ICT in Ukraine, to include services?
Thank you for that. I would mention that Europe funds and Europe Commission, they are going enough fast. Even the Digital Euro program, the grants for businesses for making new services in the country. And what we can do to support it, for example, in the country, we've got E8 program, which is using DIA, and we tested during the COVID time to spread the money through the people to the private sector. Means during the COVID, it was money which were given directly to people to buy books, to go to the cinema, theaters, and so on, to buy some sport abonnements and so on. So to make them more active, because COVID seems to leave people at home. And due to this program, people just bought a lot of services, good services. They support with millions of hryvnia directly to the good services in Ukraine, good private companies. This was our pledge to the development of companies, to support the companies, not through the old style, low speed governmental program, but directly from the people. They voted by money, using their money. This is the approach we can, and we've got very, it was mentioned yesterday and today as well, very sophisticated governmental program as a DIA solution and so on. So we working directly with the people. I mean, government can ask people, can bring people to the role, and we can channel all this money, for example, to build the new pipeline under the Black Sea to connect different countries and Ukraine with the high-speed internet. So that's it. So we are ready, and also it was mentioned before, adopting the legislation for new rules. I would say that we are able to adopt a law within 2 weeks.
Wow.
It
Wow.
is the fact. It is a fact.
It
It was.
I'm going to interrupt you. He said they're able to adopt a law in 2 weeks. I just want that to resonate for a minute.
Yeah. It is crucial because we are under the war. But we are able to do this. This is something I want to raise. We are ready to adopt our legislation, our procedures to be ready, and we are open for investments in our digital infrastructure.
So one of the things that has come across in what everybody has said is an element of ICT that we don't often talk about, and that's the human element. Whether it is the courageous Ukrainians who, in the face of missile attacks, are rebuilding damaged infrastructure, or the vision of a Ukrainian government pre-invasion during COVID of the need for humanity for its citizens, to provide citizens with a little bit of cash to be able to live life like people live life. Go to the theater, go to a football match, play games with your children or read to them. The humanity is a very vital component to the rebuilding and the new building of Ukraine overall. Mr. Ambassador, I might turn to you for your thoughts on the next steps. What are the thoughts and visions of European leaders for public investment, private investment, everyone's favorite term, public-private partnerships, to get Ukraine where it needs to be Russia-free and to be interoperable, integrated into the EU, and NATO-ready? What are those important next steps, and where does an American private sector play a role?
Yeah, these are incredibly timely questions, and I'm afraid that there is no, let's say, single ready answer to that. We are still kind of finding our way through different options, but something that is particularly relevant in the realm of IT services and keeping the country going when it comes to all the things digital. That has happened during this war in Ukraine, and something that I think we all should pay attention to is the new kind of true public-private partnership when it comes to creating and maintaining the resilience of the digital infrastructure, digital services. Because this is probably one of the I would say big heroic stories of this war that most people maybe don't know about or have not paid enough attention to. It's the way the big and small private companies have played a crucial role in keeping digital Ukraine going, and actually helping the public to get the services that often the government has designed and offering to them. It's about big and small Ukrainian companies, but very importantly also, and particularly while having this event in Washington, it's also about the big multinationals. The way the Ukrainian networks have been defended against the cyber attacks, the way Ukrainian data has been protected against theft and compromising, the way the private companies have actually been doing the cyber intelligence and providing this data to the governments. We believe that this has actually changed the nature of relationship between the public and private sector when it comes to providing the digital service and defending the digital domain. We know that our own government agencies are today relying more on the information that is actually provided by the private companies on the risks and threats that they see, and I believe, or at least I hope, that also our governments are more open to sharing their data with private companies, be they the Ericssons or Amazon Web Services or Googles and Microsofts. Now we're talking about the future and the new building, and I absolutely love this term. We in Estonia, and I personally, very much believe that we have to look at the recovery and reconstruction of Ukraine, be it in the digital domain or also in the more, let's say, physical brick and mortar domain. We have to look at it differently than, for example, the most common reference is the Marshall Plan. After all, when Marshall Plan was created, the world was very different. The Western Europe was in complete ruins. The U.S. economy was fully on war footing, and the private sector was not really there to help in this recovery effort. Now it is completely different situation, where actually private money from across the world is seeking for attractive investment opportunities wherever they can actually do and get long-term opportunities. So we believe that the governments should take the right steps to create the environment where the private sector is comfortable and confident to come in big and actually do the like heavy loading or carry the heavy burden of recovery and restoration, rebuilding or new building, because they understand that there will be safe, sustainable opportunities there. The Ukrainian government has to do the big part when it comes to regulation, when it comes to other parts of rule of law and these things. But we all as a Western community, we have to take steps to make sure that, firstly, Ukraine wins this war decisively, that there will be a sustainable peace. But the really sustainable peace can only be there if the long-term security of Ukraine is guaranteed in a way that is credible, not only for someone in, let's say, in Kiev or my capital, but also to people working for big investment companies. And we believe this is all about membership in NATO and the European Union. If this is there, not only as the something on the distant horizon, but something that is attainable, that has a path to it, and hopefully the date to it, then the private sector takes notice. The private sector will be there to actually, again, not help us out. This is not charity, but to take advantage of the opportunities there.
Free market flow to where there is opportunity. And the opportunity is determined based on both the opportunity for return and the calculation of risk. Andrea, when you look at that risk-return equation, and you look at the experience that you've had in Ukraine during the war, but also in Ukraine pre-war, if you had a crystal ball, what would the new building, what form would it take? How much of it would be hard infrastructure based? How much of it would be software based? How much of it would reside, say, in the cloud? And how much would be terrestrial? These are big infrastructure questions, but they have to be talked about so that investors know exactly what the landscape looks like for investment. And I don't just mean bank investors, I mean corporate investors, companies looking at making that infrastructure investment in Ukraine. What does your crystal ball look like?
I mean, no crystal ball, unluckily. What I can say is that over time, telecommunication, sometimes we hear the word, is a commodity. And being a commodity, as all the coins, has two flips. On one end is, maybe less attractive than it was to be 20 years back. On the other is a human need, a basic human need. And the war has just shown how this human need is augmented by a critical situation. Being in crisis brings telecommunication to the next level. It's no longer just to reach internet or the digital services of the state. It's really to ensure people to talk to each other. Is to ensure that the freedom of the information is there. We are talking about something that is bigger than just the traditional way we look at the communication industry. At the same time, as you said, it's about return over the investment. So in a country like Ukraine, where big money is coming for investment of the lithium that is a unique rare material that you have in Ukraine, about the railway, one of the biggest railway in the world, about agriculture and moving the agriculture to the 4.0 world, so a total different platform that Ukraine can sustain. I mean, this is big money that will flow into the industry. Telecommunication will enable this to happen. There is no way the new capability of Ukraine will not be using 5G and cloud capabilities, both together, but also investing in the unique competence that Ukraine has to increase the level of return in the country of this investment. So I see a big opportunity, not only about just rebuilding the network, but moving it to the next level. And there will be an interesting business case to look when we will start putting these things together. So I'm positive to this.
I appreciate the optimism. Vera, when you look at Ukraine today, Ukraine even 4 years ago, and you look at Europe. In the United States, we talk about old Europe and we talk about new Europe. When we talk about new Europe, we're talking about Estonia, Poland, Czech Republic, and conceivably, Ukraine. How do you look at new Europe, Ukraine, and the role that the private sector and economic development jointly play in making Ukraine as attractive an option as, say, what we're calling New Europe?
Thank you for this question. Ukraine already have very big ties with all Europe, old and new. I don't know the current statistics, but 6 months ago, every fifth small entrepreneurship entity in Poland was opened by Ukrainians. So it may be even bigger now. A lot of Ukrainian business expand because of the war, expands abroad. Business opens new production facility. Business opens the representative offices. The Ukrainian business starts to trade with Europe. So our trade balance with all European countries is growing. Ukraine expand. I suppose Ukraine will be in nearest future part of Europe as any other country with full membership, with full benefits and with full responsibilities which these benefits hold. Also, let me return to the question of opportunities in Ukraine. Together with colleagues from European Business Association and Ukraine Invest, we created an investment opportunity map of Ukraine. It's an online free tool. You can just Google map of investment opportunities, and our map is divided by regions. It's a map of investment opportunities which already here. You can contact these companies and find any information about what is the opportunity and what is the return on investment. Our map divided by region, divided by industry, by some other criteria, and we have already a proven track of records when potential investors contacted these entities which presented this opportunity, and collaboration began. So investors are coming to Ukraine, and more investors are welcome. And one more thing that I have a paper map. If you open it on your screen, there are a lot of opportunities in the center of Ukraine, and much less opportunities in western part of Ukraine, which seems to be more safer, closer to Europe, closer to border, with easier logistics. There are less opportunities because a lot of investors already there. So
I'm going to ask you to please say the website that people should go to in order to pull up this map.
Investment opportunity map.
Oh, so just do a Google search on investment opportunities map of Ukraine.
Yeah.
Very good. Maxime, we're running short on time. I would like you to offer us some thoughts on not just this panel, but your perspective on where we are and what is most needed today. The way that you articulate it is really remarkable, because it isn't a question of needs and handouts. It's a question of the role that Ukraine legitimately plays in the global economy and in global security. So I'd love you to offer us some of your thoughts to close us out today.
Referring to the things was said today, the one, it is special DSCT regime in Ukraine, means that the countries from abroad can get better conditions for the investments and running business in Ukraine. This is the point number one, and more than 400 international companies are in Ukraine, and I can name few of them, like Revolt, like the just second countries. Most countries, this is the European countries and American countries, Reface, Ajax, MacPo, Luxoft, Sigma, and other companies. You might know MacPo company because each 5 of iPhone using their solutions. So this is big companies, they already in Ukraine. And we are keen to support your investments. The second point was mentioned, we've got people and technology. Almost 20,000 Ukrainians of high level of expertise, they are on the market and ready to join your ventures. And this is something you should know, and they not leaving the country, they are there. And also the legislation and adoptions, we are doing this every day, integrating with European and international standards. This is something to you to know, and the things you can join, it is 2 billion of investments have to be done, and also 75% provisional part of Ukraine need to be modernized, and this is something you can be part of.
It's very inspiring to hear this panel's conversation about where the opportunities are. As Ambassador Prik has said, now is the moment. Europe is already there. American companies should look at opportunities in Ukraine as opportunities for growth, but opportunities also for expansion. There's a lot that remains to be done, not the least of which is a victory for Ukraine over Russia. But to hearken back to Ambassador McKee's comments, the economic recovery has to begin now. We cannot wait for the Ukrainian defeat of Russia. If we wait, we lose. So I want to thank all of the members of this panel. Thank you very much for spending time with us, for traveling here to Washington, for advocating for the new build of Ukraine's ICT infrastructure, but also for partnership with the people of Ukraine. And I think what we say now is Slava Ukraini. Thank you. I think, Dan, if I'm not mistaken, that's it. That's all, folks. That's a wrap.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.